He did not exist. But Portland Hospital finally confirms Meghan's Archie birth lie. All right, we are diving deep into a topic that has been swirling around like a bad odor for years. And honestly, it's high time we clear the air. We're talking about Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor's birth. Yes, that infamous moment at the Portland Hospital, followed by claims so wild they would make your dentures rattle. You see, this couple, Harry and Meghan, they love a good story. And they love a good drama. Everything, it seems, is painted with this thick brush of victimhood and hardship. But what happens when you actually scratch the surface? What happens when you bring in someone who was there, who lived the reality they claim was so uniquely dramatic and challenging? Today, we are beyond fortunate to have Jennifer joining us. Jennifer isn't just another royal watcher. She has firsthand experience at the very place where Archie was supposedly born. And her insights are going to blow the lid off some of the narratives we've been fed. According to Harry's tell-all, after Meghan gave birth, very complicated birth, he insists, they were back at Frogmore Cottage within 2 hours. 2 hours, folks, from central London, where the Portland Hospital is located. But that's not all. Meghan, in her now infamous Oprah interview, threw in another detail about Archie's birth. She mentioned receiving 2 epidurals. She also gave conflicting reasons for why they kept the birth secret from the press. First, she didn't want Paps blocking the emergency room entrance at Portland, a hospital that doesn't even have a standard emergency room entrance like you'd find in, say, a regular NHS hospital or a hospital here in the States. And then, in another breath, she suggested it was because she didn't want photos of the people being racist against her son. And finally, she claimed they did notify the press pool, but nobody came, painting them as rejected and alone. Which one is it, Meghan? It's like a choose-your-own-adventure of questionable claims. And then there's Harry's bizarre anecdote about inhaling the entire tank of laughing gas in the delivery room. This isn't just a funny little detail. It raises serious questions about hospital protocol and safety. Is it standard practice for the father to hog the patient's pain relief? Were there no nurses monitoring the situation? It just doesn't compute with how reputable hospitals operate. Thanks, Jennifer, so much for being here. You actually gave birth at the Portland Hospital back in 2013, right? Jennifer answers, confirming she gave birth there to twins in 2013, and you were classified as a geriatric pregnancy, weren't you? I know that term can sound a bit jarring, but medically, it applies to pregnancies in women over 35, which Meghan was when she had Archie. Jennifer confirms and talks about her age in delivering twins, highlighting the complexity. Okay, so let's talk about the Portland Hospital itself. There's this myth out there, perpetuated by Meghan, that it has this big emergency room entrance that could be blocked. But is that true? What's the reality of that facility? Jennifer explains Portland is a private hospital, doesn't have a standard ER like in the US, but has specialized units like a NICU and a maternal critical care unit for high-risk mothers. She confirms they would transfer serious emergencies to an NHS hospital. That's a crucial distinction, isn't it? So Meghan's claim about protecting the emergency room entrance from paparazzi doesn't quite hold water if the hospital doesn't have one in the traditional sense for general emergencies. It makes you wonder if that was the real reason for the secrecy, or just another convenient excuse. Now, let's get into the medical side. Meghan mentioned postpartum preeclampsia in a later interview, describing it as a very serious condition. And Jennifer, you unfortunately have personal experience with this as well, don't you? Jennifer confirms experiencing preeclampsia and HELLP syndrome. Details high blood pressure, needing booster shots of magnesium sulfate, and being monitored closely. Wow, that sounds incredibly serious. Jennifer, can you tell us more about what happens when you experience preeclampsia? Especially postpartum, what were the warning signs? And what kind of medical attention did you need? Jennifer elaborates on symptoms like high blood pressure, protein in urine, potential for seizures, HELLP syndrome, blood cell destruction, low platelets, emphasizing constant monitoring by doctors, nurses. She explains magnesium sulfate treatment. Thank you for sharing such personal detail, Jennifer. It really underscores how serious this condition is. Now, based on your experience and what we know about standard medical practice, even in a high-end private hospital like the Portland, if a woman had a complicated birth and developed preeclampsia, even a mild case, what would the typical recovery and discharge timeline look like? Would she be sent home within 2 hours, as Harry claimed? Jennifer strongly states that a discharge within 2 hours is highly unlikely or impossible after a complicated birth and preeclampsia, even a mild case. She reiterates the typical discharge times for vaginal birth, 2 days without complications, and C-section, 3-4 days without complications, and the need for monitoring, especially with preeclampsia risk. Exactly. This is where the story starts to completely unravel. A vaginal birth with an epidural, no complications, is typically 2 days in days in the hospital. A C-section, no complications, is 3 to 4 days. Your experience, Jennifer, having a C-section with twins and preeclampsia issues, saw you discharge the next day, which is even faster than the norm for a C-section, highlighting that every case is different, but still not 2 hours after birth. And let's not forget, Meghan was a geriatric pregnancy when she had Archie, which, as you mentioned, automatically increases the risk level. Doctors are going to be extra vigilant in those cases. They would be monitoring her blood pressure constantly, checking for protein in her urine. These are standard procedures to detect preeclampsia early. So, the idea that she had a complicated birth, potentially involving preeclampsia, had 1 or even 2 epidurals, and was somehow cleaned up, stitched up, if needed after a vaginal birth, mobile enough to get dressed, gather her belonging, bundle up a newborn baby, and get in a car for over an hour's drive back to Frogmore Cottage, all within 2 hours of giving birth? That doesn't just sound unlikely. It sounds medically impossible. Think about it. The hospital staff at the Portland are renowned for their meticulous care. Their reputation depends on it. They wouldn't discharge a patient with a complicated birth and a serious medical condition like preeclampsia so quickly. It would be negligent and risk their entire business. This isn't some back alley clinic. It's a top-tier maternity hospital. Let's also touch on Harry's claim about the laughing gas. Were there always medical staff present in the room during your labor at the Portland, Jennifer? Especially when pain relief was being administered? Jennifer confirms staff are very attentive, especially in a private hospital setting. Right. So the image of Harry freely inhaling the patient's pain relief without a nurse present to monitor dosage and ensure safety feels highly improbable, if not downright dangerous and against hospital policy. It adds another layer of theatrical embellishment to a story that already strains credulity. And the Nando's run to then add 2 a.m. Most Nando's locations in the UK are closed by 10 or 11 p.m. Did Harry dispatch his royal security detail, who were supposed to be protecting his high-risk, recently delivered wife and newborn, to go on a late-night chicken run to a closed restaurant? It's such a bizarre, unnecessary detail that only serves to make the entire narrative seem less believable. It's almost as if these details were added for dramatic effect, but weren't properly fact-checked against reality. It all circles back to the central contradiction, the claim of a serious, complicated birth requiring significant medical intervention and monitoring, immediately followed by a seemingly miraculous, impossibly fast recovery and return home. These two narratives are fundamentally incompatible with medical reality and typical hospital procedures. Then Meghan talks about suffering quietly and having to face the public right after birth. Well, she didn't face the public after Lilibet's birth during COVID lockdowns, did she? That birth was kept completely private. The whole facing the public expectation is tied to the traditional royal role, which they chose to leave. And let's be honest, even when Kate steps out hours after giving birth at the Lindo wing, she's had medical attention, rest, and likely significant help getting ready. That image isn't of a woman who was just discharged after a complicated birth and rushed out the door. And why bring up postpartum preeclampsia in such a vague, almost throwaway manner years later, without offering any context or details, especially if it was a truly serious condition? As Jennifer mentioned, it's a serious medical issue, and millions of women experience it. Talking about it responsibly could raise awareness and help others. But simply dropping the term in a conversation about unrelated struggles feels performative and, frankly, disrespectful to those who have genuinely suffered its severe impacts, including potentially fatal ones. Let's look at this comment shared by Richard Bradford, who is an earl whose wife works at the Portland. He directly contradicts the Sun's claim that they couldn't contact anyone at the hospital about Archie's birth. The Daily Mail did contact him the day before to check, and he was able to tell them his wife hadn't delivered Archie. This suggests that the press was able to get information, and that Harry's claim that nobody came after they notified them is, at best, misleading. It looks more like the couple chose to withhold information, which they have the right to do, but then fabricated reasons and blamed the press/palace for their own choices. It paints a picture, doesn't it? A picture of a narrative carefully constructed for maximum drama and sympathy, but one that falls apart under the slightest scrutiny, especially when confronted with real-world experience and established facts about the very hospital they used. The story of Archie's birth, as told by Harry and Meghan, with the incredibly fast return, the 2 epidurals, the strange laughing gas incident, and the shifting reasons for secrecy, simply doesn't add up. It's riddled with inconsistencies that someone with actual experience at the Portland hospital, like Jennifer, can immediately spot. What do you make of these inconsistencies? Have you or someone you know experienced preeclampsia or given birth at the Portland? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. When you look at the whole picture, the speed of the claimed return, the medical details that don't align with standard recovery, the bizarre anecdotes, the changing stories about the press, and the fact that Harry is the only supposed witness to some of the most dramatic moments, it's hard not to be skeptical. It raises the question, why fabricate or exaggerate these details? What purpose does it serve to tell a story that is so easily debunked by reality and medical knowledge? Is it simply to enhance the narrative of suffering and hardship, to make their break from the monarchy seem more justified? From my perspective, and echoed by Jennifer's first-hand experience, the Archie birth story, as presented by Harry and Meghan, stretches the bounds of belief. It confirms a pattern of embellishment and inconsistency that makes it incredibly difficult to trust their narratives, especially when they touch upon serious topics like medical conditions. If you found this discussion insightful, please give this video a like and subscribe to Royal Riffraff for more deep dives into the royal family's headlines and behind-the-scenes stories. Thank you again to Jennifer for sharing her valuable insights and experience. Her perspective provides much-needed clarity on a situation that has been shrouded in conflicting claim. Have a great day, everybody!